So the Beatles, after 1966, they didn't tour anymore, didn't have any concerts, right?
Yeah, that's right. But their swan song was that performance on the rooftop that was captured on film.
Yeah.
And, it's the final record we have of them playing together live.
And that is exactly what we need to get into today, because when you think of that concert, you see the iconic images, the fur coats, the wind, that gray London sky. But the road to getting up there to 3 Savile Row was just absolute chaos.
Oh, completely. The rooftop was essentially Plan Z. To even understand why they ended up on a cold roof, you have to look at the ambition of the whole project.
This was the Get Back sessions.
Exactly. What became Let It Be. They'd just come off the White Album, which was very fragmented, and before that, Sgt. Pepper, which was this masterpiece of studio production.
Something they could never play live.
No way. Too many overdubs, orchestras. So the whole idea for these new sessions was to strip all of that away, to be a rock and roll band again.
Live vocals, live instruments.
No studio trickery. And of course, if you're the Beatles and you decide to play live for the first time in years, you don't just book the local town hall.
You swing for the fences. I was looking at the list of places they were seriously considering, and it's like a travel agent's fever dream.
It really is. They're aiming for the impossible. For a long time, the front runner was actually a Roman amphitheater in Tunisia.
In Tunisia?
Yeah. They had producers scouting the location. The idea was to shout the band, the crew, all the gear, and even a boatload of fans across the Mediterranean. They thought the acoustics would be perfect.
That's incredible, but that wasn't even the wildest idea, was it?
No, it gets better. There were legitimate, budgeted plans drawn up to perform at the Great Sphinx in Egypt.
Wow.
And they wanted to play as the sun rose. So just imagine the logistics of that. The Beatles in the sand with hundreds of Bedouin torchbearers. It's just insane.
I can just picture the sand getting into the amplifiers. A total disaster.
It would have been a nightmare. And they didn't stop there. There was talk of an ocean liner in the middle of the Atlantic or the Sahara Desert. These were real conversations.
It's amazing to think what that would have looked like, but obviously none of it happened. And the reason isn't just because the logistics were hard.
No, that's the crucial context. By January of '69, the reality had set in. They were filming everything, so cameras were capturing every argument.
Paul was trying to drag everyone along.
By sheer force of will, yeah. John was physically there, but he was, emotionally checked out with Yoko.
And George Harrison just had enough.
He did. We can't gloss over that. A few days before they ended up at Apple, George actually quit the band, stood up at lunch and said, "See you around the clubs," and just walked out.
So you go from let's play at the Sphinx to we don't even have a lead guitarist.
Precisely. They managed to coax him back, but he had one condition. No traveling abroad. No Tunisia, no boat, no desert. So all those grand plans just collapsed.
Which leads to the moment of decision. And it's one of my favorite stories because it's so practical.
It is the ultimate Ringo Starr moment. They're all sitting around, still arguing about permits for some club in London, and it's just a headache.
And Ringo just cuts through it all.
Yeah, he just looks around and says, "I'd like to go on the roof."
I'd like to go on the roof. Problem solved.
It just stopped everyone in their tracks.
Yeah.
It was the building they were standing in, Apple Corps headquarters. The gear was already there. No passports, no packing.
Just climb the stairs and play. So, okay, let's go to the day itself. January 30th, 1969, about 12:30 in the afternoon.
And this was not glamorous at all. You have to feel for the roadies, Mal Evans and Kevin Harrington. The elevator didn't go all the way to the top.
So they're hauling everything up by hand.
Physically hauling Ringo's drum kit, those heavy Fender amps, all of it, up these narrow service stairs.
With no sound check, right?
None. No rehearsal, nothing. They were just setting up on wooden planks on a roof and plugging in. But the biggest factor that day really was the weather.
People forget that because the music sounds so energetic, but London in January it's miserable.
It was freezing, about 45 degrees Fahrenheit, so 7 Celsius. But you're 5 stories up, near the River Thames. That wind just cuts right through you.
Which explains the fashion, because honestly, the photos look like some high-concept runway show.
But it was pure survival.
Yeah.
None of it was styled. John Lennon is wearing Yoko's fur coat because he was freezing to death. That iconic image was just him trying to stay warm.
And Ringo's in that bright red coat.
Which was his wife Maureen's raincoat, and he just grabbed it. It looked fantastic against the gray sky, but again, it was just practical.
George had his own fur coat, but paired with questionable green pants.
They were a choice. And then you have Paul.
The outlier.
Paul's the only one in a regular suit jacket. He looks totally unbothered by the cold, just jumping around. It was a perfect visual for his energy on the project.
But the wind wasn't just about comfort. It was a huge technical crisis.
Oh, yeah. It almost ruined the whole thing. The audio engineers realized they had a massive problem before a single note was played.
Because wind and microphones do not mix.
Not at all. Wind hits the microphone's diaphragm and causes these low-frequency thumps, these plosives. It can make a recording totally unusable. And they didn't have the modern fuzzy windscreens we have today.
So what did they do?
Mal Evans had to save the day. He had to improvise. He sprinted downstairs, ran out onto Regent Street, and bought women's pantyhose.
You're kidding! Pantyhose!
I'm not. You can just picture this big bearded roadie running into a shop and buying up all their pantyhose. He ran back and they started cutting them up and wrapping the nylon over the microphones.
And that works. How?
It's physics. The nylon mesh is just porous enough. It breaks up the gusts of wind so it doesn't slam into the diaphragm, but it lets the sound waves from the voice pass right through. It's an acoustic filter.
High art meets hosiery.
Exactly. If you watch the footage closely, you can see these weird fabric wraps on the mics. That's the pantyhose.
Wow.
It literally saved the recording.
That's brilliant. So the mics are wrapped, the band is freezing, but then they start to play, and there's someone else up there with them.
Yes, Billy Preston, the fifth Beatle.
He was essential.
Absolutely. For two reasons. First, the psychology. George brought him in because he knew the band was on its best behavior around a guest.
The company manners effect.
Exactly. You don't fight in front of company. But musically, his impact was even bigger. They'd sworn off overdubs, which left a sort of sonic hole.
Enter the Fender Rhodes.
Billy was playing that Fender Rhodes electric piano. It has this warm, rolling, almost gospel sound. It acts like a glue between the guitars and the rhythm section, just fills everything out.
It grounded them, and the set list they played, it was all rock and roll.
No ballads. This was them getting back to their roots. Get back, don't let me down, I've got a feeling.
And one after 909.
Which is amazing, because that was one of the first songs John and Paul wrote together as teenagers.
Yeah.
Playing it on that roof was like closing a circle.
But playing in that cold, I mean, as a guitar player, your fingers just turn into sausages.
It was so difficult.
Yeah.
Ringo said he could barely feel the drumsticks, and the guitars would not stay in tune. The cold air makes the metal strings contract and go sharp.
And you can really hear the cold in John's voice.
So it's incredibly raw. He's not crooning, "Don't let me down." He's shouting it against the wind. It gives the vocal this desperate, sharp edge that's just perfect.
And yet, despite everything, the sound is incredible. I want to talk about that rhythm section.
Yes, because their musical connection was still telepathic. The interplay between the drums and the bass is phenomenal.
Paul's bass playing on this is some of his best.
It really is. He never just plays the root note. On "Don't Let Me Down," the bass is like a counter melody to the vocal. It's weaving in and out.
And it's locked right in with Ringo.
Perfectly. Ringo has that unique, slightly behind-the-beat feel, and Paul's bass is right there with the kick drum. They had to rely on pure instinct up there.
It really shows that when they started to play, everything else just disappeared.
That's the magic of it. You see them smiling. John and Paul lean into the same mic, just like they did at the Cavern Club. For those 42 minutes, they were a band again.
And while all this is happening, 5 stories up, down on the street, it is chaos.
Total disruption. I mean, this is Savile Row, the heart of the British establishment. Very proper, very quiet.
And suddenly, the loudest band in the world starts blasting from the sky.
Everything just stopped. People were hanging out of windows, climbing on other roofs to get a look. It turned into a spontaneous street party.
But not everyone was happy about it.
No, the local businesses were furious. So inevitably, the complaints started. And then the London Metropolitan Police show up.
The fuzz.
They arrive at Apple and threaten to arrest them for disturbing the peace.
Can you imagine being the cop who gets to arrest John Lennon for playing too loud?
It's the ultimate rock and roll story. But this led to a brilliant moment from Paul.
During the second take of Get Back, right?
Yes. He sees the police coming onto the roof.
Yeah.
He knows they're about to shut it down. So instead of stopping, he starts improvising the lyrics.
He's mocking them.
In rhyme. He sings, "You've been playing on the roofs again, and you know your mama doesn't like it. She's going to have you arrested."
He's poking fun at them right to their faces. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
And defiant.
I think the police were a bit starstruck, too. They actually let them finish the song before they finally pulled the plug.
And when they did, that was it. The amps go off.
And that was the end of the Beatles' live career. It's a heavy moment looking back.
Yeah.
And John, being John, had to have the perfect last word.
The famous quote.
The sound is gone, the police are moving in, and John steps to the mic and says, "I'd like to say thank you on behalf of the group and ourselves, and I hope we pass the audition."
It's just perfect.
It's the perfect epitaph for the Beatles as a live band. So self-deprecating, so funny, it just breaks all the tension.
And that's really the legacy, isn't it? It wasn't the polished show they planned at the Sphinx.
And thank goodness it wasn't. Because that wouldn't have been them. The Rooftop was authentic, it was chaotic, it was real, and for 42 minutes, they were just musicians playing their hearts out.
A beautiful way to say goodbye.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for joining us today. Whenever you feel like knowing more about the Beatles, visit us at BeatlesRewind.com. It's the Beatles all day, every day, 8 days a week. Cass will do it again tomorrow.
You bet. I wouldn't miss it.
Until next time, when you listen.
Your mind conducts its own symphony.